welcome to the Unlock Lab. I'm your host, Tosca DiMatteo, and I am thrilled to be with you today to talk about our inner critics. But before I get into that, I want to share a little bit about who I am. I am a coach and consultant, and I do transformation work. Whether you're an individual looking to get out of your own way or an organization looking for support to bring humanity back into your culture, I'm here to support you in any of that. A big piece of what I do is speaking in front of groups, whether that's keynote speaking, group facilitation and coaching, but I also do one-on-one work. You can learn more about what I do and how you can work with me at CoachTosca.com. You'll also find a whole bunch of blog posts there if you are looking for more content. I look forward to seeing you over there. All right, so today we're talking about inner critic work. And this is one of the absolute foundations of the work that I do. And I'm excited to talk about it finally. Like, there's a part of me, actually, to be quite honest, that's like, oh man, like, I can't screw this episode up. This is what I do keynote talks on. And so what else can I talk about today? But I'm like, you know what? I'm just going after it. I'm going into it because I'm just not listening to my inner critic. This is a perfectly imperfect podcast. I'm only a few episodes in, and I have a lot of experimenting left to do with it. And frankly, some support to find, because the production has been done by either myself or my brother. So we're just, we're making it happen. But anyway, it's a great way to start, right? Because I don't care if you're 22 and entering a job for the first time, or if you're 72 and you're looking for the next thing that you want to get out of your life. Our inner critics can really come front and center at any point in our life. And actually, different inner critics will come in at different times. For years, my food inner critic was front and center. Then I had, my entrepreneurial inner critic front and center, my financial inner critic. It's like we can make significant progress in certain areas of the narratives that we're telling ourselves that aren't serving us. And once we do that, another inner critic from our safety department pops up because there's something else that our inner critic wants to protect us from. So this is, to me, it's a lifelong process of continuing to be aware of what we're telling ourselves and to really understand how it's impacting us, whether it's impacting the decisions that we're making, whether it's impacting the relationships that we have, whether it's impacting what we're choosing to do in our lives. We always have to be aware of which part of us is leading the way, which part of us is driving our choices. Because if it's the inner critic voice that's driving us, then we're missing out on living to our fullest potential. That's my take on this work. So let me back the truck up a little bit and talk about what exactly are inner critics. Inner critics are the voices or the narratives that aren't serving us. It can range and sound and look like a lot of different things. It can sound like voices in our head, but it can also be feelings that we have and emotions that we have that maybe don't get articulated necessarily in our head. But from a voice perspective, it might sound like, don't go after that promotion, you're never going to get it. Or don't go after that job, you're not qualified. It can also sound like, he does not like you, don't even try to step to him. It can also sound like you're fat. It can sound like you look terrible in those jeans. And it can sound like you shouldn't go on vacation because you don't have the money. Like it runs the gambit, right? But the thread of what these inner critic narratives are is that they are telling us a lie. They are not truths. So some key things to listen for as it relates to inner critics is when you say to yourself, I should, or I need to, or maybe you're using words that are absolute, like never, I'll never do this, or he always. Those are other ways to identify that the inner critic is a lie. And because we've lived with our inner critics our entire life, most likely, it can get really confusing about like what is from our highest self, our true self, and what's coming from this part of us that's essentially our safety department that's keeping us safe from something. It's keeping us safe from disappointment or failure or embarrassment or financial ruin or a host of other things that are critical um, needs that we have. And these inner critic voices, um, they start when we're really young most of the time. And then if if we're not aware and we're not careful, they can grow in time. They grow from what we're exposed to in society, in our family structures, in our jobs. And so they can get really, really fueled because what happens is, when we get triggered, what's happening is our our wounds are being opened. And then our inner critic comes up to try to protect us. But the thing is, the way that our inner critics protect us now as adults aren't actually serving us. That's the that's the big thing to recognize. It may have been serving us earlier in our lives when we were 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 because we didn't have all the tools in our toolbox for how to deal with the types of things that we had to deal with at those ages. But now that we're grown adults, we have a lot more that's available to us, but we haven't necessarily been building those muscles all this time. So we keep kind of relying on these old habits, these old thoughts, um, to protect us and to drive our decision making. So I love actually that we're talking about this topic early in the year because you may still be really fresh with like your goals and your ambitions and what you want out of this year. And to me, so what I think is that the deepest layer of work that we can do for ourselves, for living our best life, for reaching our potential, for going after everything that we want is is really doing this deep inner critic work and driving awareness of what's actually happening in our life. And I've been doing this work for years and I've been working on my inner critics for since the beginning of time. For those of you who are familiar, I was born with a visible birth defect called cleft lip and palate, and so I was told at a very young age, right, that it wasn't okay to just be me. And they weren't said in those words, right, but it was the actions of others. But I'm still dealing with different types of inner critics. Like, for example, I'm wearing a Colombian hat right now, because it's not the best like hair day for me. But also I just got back from a beautiful trip to Colombia and I got this hat and I'm just feeling the vacation vibe still. Um, but while I was out there, my success inner critic was telling me, oh my gosh, what are you doing? January's like moving along and you're not doing anything on your business. And, that's kind of triggered, right? This idea that I should be doing and I should be creating and producing and putting myself out there in social and taking advantage of this time of year where a lot of people are thinking about what they want and the support that they need. But that's just an inner critic voice based on a whole bunch of conditioning and a lot of messaging, from my past as well around what it takes to be successful and about what is necessary. And I had to really quickly take a look at that and say none of this is true. That I actually don't have to be on social media every day to build my business. That actually I need to fill my cup and I need a break from all the output that I've created in 2023 and all the things, right? But I have to be conscious about what is it I'm telling myself? How am I like disrupting my vacation basically with these messages? How is my energy being drained because I'm worried about my business? As opposed to the alternative to this, which is okay, I allow those thoughts to come. I can't block the initial thought. But the real choice comes in what do I say to myself next or what do I do with that thought? That is what this work is. That is how you break habits and unlock your life. And so I was really quickly able to recognize, oh, my success inner critic is doing that thing again. And I had to come back to my truth, which is that I believe and I value taking breaks and honoring what's important to me, which is spending time with my friends, which I may never get again. Those 5 women that I went on vacation with may never get together again in that same way, right? So I value that type of experience and that's my truth. And so I can just, you know, ignore my inner critic in those moments and say, nope, I'm not letting that thought dominate me. I'm moving on. I'm going to come back to the moment and enjoy the present moment that I'm in. And so, to be honest, like, because I've been doing this work for so long, it was really easy for me to course correct because I'm so practiced at it. But this isn't necessarily the case even last June. Last June, I took a vacation and I had that success inner critic coming in and wreaking havoc. And it was a lot harder then. But I've grown so much in these past, 6 or 8 months or whatever it's been to be like, no, no, I remember that I really needed that break and it was really helpful. And it is okay to let my business just be, and let the universe take care of it in the space that gets created, and the creativity that develops when we just give ourselves permission to not be in overdrive and not constantly be in doing mode. So that's, just a quick example of how inner critics come in and start telling us stuff, and now that we're kind of at the end of January, maybe you've got some inner critic thoughts that have been coming up because you had some ambitions, or maybe the year didn't start the way that you really wanted, and maybe you're starting to spiral. And if you don't know how to get out of it, inner critic work is going to be the most profound thing that you can do for yourself to get yourself out of whatever rut or onto the elevator um, that you want to be on to get to where you're going. I love this topic because I know how transformative it is. I do this work with my clients. Um, with every client, the topic of inner critics and doing that work together is a part of our work. It just is. It's the biggest obstacle that we have in our lives to overcome. And it's different from mindset work. I don't Look, I'm not a mindset coach. I don't position myself that way because I do the deep work of healing our wounds and not putting band-aids and like, you know, insane mantras on top of these feelings that we have that we're not addressing. Deep inner critic work is uncovering where our pain points are, where our wounds are, and doing the work to look at that, have new perspective, heal, and identify what we want now going forward and how do we want to behave going forward that's actually going to serve us. Inner critic work isn't just for ourselves. It's not just for um, us reaching our own potential. In fact, inner critic work is really powerful for how we can be in relationship with others. It has incredible ripple effects. Think about it. Think about what happens when you show up and you're feeling good about yourself and you're confident in your own skin and somebody says something that used to trigger you, but now because you've addressed that old wound and you've worked through it, you can now respond to that person from a place of calm, from a place of inner peace, and from a place of knowing your truth, knowing the truth. And that will shift that relationship because you're showing up differently, because you're handling things differently. So, whether you're a leader in your organization, a leader in your own business, or not, it doesn't matter because life is so much about our relationships. And inner critic work will help relationships in all aspects of your life, whether it's your husband, your spouse, um, or your boss. That's why I love this work because it's really inclusive of life, not just our careers. But oftentimes when people come to me, it's because there's some opportunity or frustration in their career. And what they realize is how impactful it is on their entire life. So, yeah, I know I'm kind of, this is a lot, right? This is like a huge topic. There's a lot of layers to this. There's a lot of tangential pieces around inner critic work. It relates to why we have a hard time holding boundaries. It relates to unresolved history that we still get really emotional about. It relates to walls of self protection and how we keep others out, and on and on. And so I just wanted to, come on here and give you a little bit of an intro to inner critic so that you can start to be an observer of your thoughts early on in this year. And I highly recommend journaling as a tool for doing this because thinking about what you're saying to yourself versus actually externalizing it and writing it down on a piece of paper can be a very different experience. It can actually be articulated in a deeper way. Um, and it can help you to see the extent of which your thoughts are not serving you. I did this myself years ago. My coach had told me to write down the things that I was saying to myself for like 2 weeks. And after a week, I was absolutely disgusted by what I was saying to myself. It was like I was telling myself in the shower, I shouldn't have had a hamburger last night. I was saying to myself, oh, I shouldn't have said that thing in that meeting. It was, oh man, I'm not a good wife. I'm not cooking enough. It was like, it was crazy. It was like I was berating myself all the time. And so that really woke me up to say, I don't want to treat myself this way. I don't want to live this way anymore. This is so freaking damaging. And another part of my story and my journey that I tell people about to kind of bring it to life is that this work is incredible because it also has big effects on our emotional, physical, mental health. It's connected to that. And I say that because in the first 22 years of my life, I was extremely hard on myself because of my appearance, because of the lack of acceptance and belonging that I felt in all the spaces. And at 22, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And to me, what I realized years and years later was like it was a wake-up call for how I was treating myself, that it had impact on my body. Like, this is how I look at that diagnosis. Um, and there's other parts of, my health that I also attribute to the mental and emotional stress I was putting on myself because of how I was treating myself. So this topic again goes far beyond unleashing potential in your career. It also goes to your physical and mental health, which to me are just they're everything. Without your physical health, what do you have, right? So I hope that this is kind of making you think a little bit about what's going on with you, and is this something that really needs to be looked at so that you can go on and have the best year ever. And I want to end with a quick story around one of the ways that my inner critic was really impacting my relationship with my husband, because like I said, this is not just about our careers and how we could show up more confidently in the meeting room, but it's also about how are we holding ourselves back, for example, from receiving the love that we deserve and the love that we actually desire deeply. And this story starts in, well, I was in my MBA program at Michigan State where I met my husband. And at the end of the program, I had gone after a job and I got an amazing job with Kimberly Clark. And I said to Ryan, I said, "Hey, wow, I got the job. I got the job." And I was so excited. I was thrilled because it was an uphill battle to get that. I won't go into it, but that was a tough job to get a marketing role in a consumer packaged goods company coming out of Michigan State MBA program. And his reaction was, "Oh, wow, they must have had a hard time getting candidates." I mean, you can imagine how much that hurt, that on so many levels. And my inner critic just ate that up, and for years and years made me think that Ryan didn't believe in me, that he didn't think I was smart, that I had to really work hard and like prove myself. And at the end of the day, what I was doing was I was just denying the love that he had for me, the respect that he had for me, because my inner critic was running amok and I was hurt. And the reality is that what he said to me wasn't about me at all. It was about how he processed the world and how he tried to make sense of things. He's super, super analytical. Look, to this day, I don't exactly understand how he processes and then verbalizes. Sometimes, foot and mouth disease happens, but actually he's gotten a lot better, and he knows I tell this story, so like I have approval. But I say this to say that my inner critic uh for years and years was not serving me because it was preventing me from accepting his love, accepting his support, and the truth that he actually has a lot of admiration and respect for um, for the work that I do and how I show up in the world. So I hope that this sparks again for you some questions around how are you treating yourself, what are the narratives you're saying to yourself, and do you need to do some deep work so that you can, gosh, feel freer, be happier, feel more fulfilled, have better relationships, find healthy ways to deal with folks that are difficult to deal with, because like, hey, that's life, right? Relationships are tough, but we can start when we unfold and unravel all the inner critic voices and all the things that we do um to survive, and we can just get to that base layer of our beautiful spirit and our beautiful soul and who we are at our core. At our core, we are our own best friend. We just have to kind of, take out the garbage that's on top of all that. And life will transform over and over and over again if you do that work. If that's something you want to do, whether it's one-on-one, whether you want to bring this topic to your organization, please reach out. You can find my contact information at coachtosca.com. All the things. So I'm easy to find. I've got the links in my show notes and all that good stuff. So, um, man, if this calls to you, if there's a little, tug at your heart, like, gosh, yeah, wouldn't it be nice if I didn't tell myself these things? I hope you reach out because I love to find a way to support you and make 2024 your best year yet. All right. I don't know how long I've been rambling, y'all, but it feels like it's been a hot minute. Once I get on the soapbox for inner critic stuff, it doesn't stop. um, but I look forward. I know like this is going to come up in a lot of my podcast episodes. It's just a recurring theme, and hopefully this intro was enlightening. I have a chapter in a book. Again, the link is in the show notes where I had this whole chapter on inner critic work as it relates to changing organizational culture. I'm really passionate about how this work can support bringing humanity into the workplace. It's really connected to that. Um, yeah. So there's other content pieces I have that will connect to this. So if you're looking for something in particular, let me know. And with that, it's been such a joy to be with you in the lab. Thanks for listening. I'm excited to continue these episodes with you to unlock the best life you can live. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Or if this really created an aha moment, let me know too, because I love hearing your stories. I love hearing how this platform can support you. It keeps me motivated to keep these going. All right. So until next time, my friends, I'll see you in the lab.